Welcome to the very first lecture for the Intro to Android course. I know that it is a very crazy time right now, and none of us expected to be teaching this course virtually. I know that at times it might feel like this course is a little cold because it's held asynchronously and you can't see our faces. However, we worked pretty hard to make this course feel slightly more personal and also really rewarding for you. In today's lecture, we will be going into an introduction to Android Studio, Android development, also Kotlin. So my name is Leslie, and I am one of the course instructors for this Intro to Android course. I have previously been an intern at Square and Twitch, working on some of their Android apps, and in the past, I was also a developer for Eatery. Kevin, who is not here to speak for himself, is also a course instructor. He has previously worked at Microsoft and Bloomberg as a suite intern, and he is currently our Android lead. In the past, he has worked on a ton of different apps for app dev, including Transit, Polo, and CourseGrab. And here is our small but mighty course staff. They are working hard to hold office hours, answer questions on Slack, and also grade homework assignments. Even though our course staff is very small, we are still working hard to provide all the support that you guys need during the duration of this course. So in terms of course logistics, if you haven't already, please enroll in CS 1998609 for up to 2 credits SU. That one credit option is only there for people who have already hit their maximum credit limit. However, regardless of the number of credits you are taking this course for, you're still required to do 2 credits worth of work. The add deadline for this course is October 2nd, so please add this course as soon as possible because this deadline is a very hard deadline. Instead of using Piazza, we are using Slack for all our course communications and office hours questions. This is just our way of making the course slightly more personal and making it slightly less formal. We also have a course website that includes office hour schedules, our syllabus, our course textbook, and our homework. And you will be submitting your homework and project assignments to CMS. In terms of requirements, we would like you to be familiar with Java or at least have some prior programming experience. All the code you will be writing will be in Kotlin, so it doesn't really matter what languages you know beforehand as long as you have some programming experience. We will also be using Android Studios, and we have guides on our website on how to set up Android Studios for different operating platforms. And if you need a review of Kotlin, or if you want to look into how to code in Kotlin, we have some guides on our course website as well. In terms of the course structure, we will be posting lecture videos on YouTube every Monday at 7:30 p.m. ET. And after our video launches, we will also launch our homework assignment, which is due the following Sunday at midnight. You're allowed 7 global slip days, 2 slip days max per assignment. And if you happen to use up all your slip days, there is a 2-point penalty for late homework assignments. We also have weekly feedback surveys that are required, and that is just a way for us to get feedback on how we are teaching this course and how to improve on the material and also on the way we are holding this course. And because we are a relatively new course, we rely really heavily on the survey to make sure we are providing you guys the best experience. And finally, at the end of our course in the last 2 weeks, we are holding the hack challenge, and during this hack challenge, you have the opportunity to participate in this 2-week-long hackathon with students from other app dev courses, including backend, iOS, and design. And you can work together to create a full-fledged app, and it's actually a really, really exciting experience because you come away with an entire project. In terms of our course overview, the first few weeks we'll be going through sort of the basics of Android, including the editor, how to create very simple views, how to move from view to view. And then starting week 4, we'll be talking about more complex UIs with list view and recycler view. And starting week 5, we'll be going into more complex architectures and more sophisticated apps with navigation, fragments, networking, and persistent storage. Week 8 lines up really nicely with the start of semifinals, and you will get a 3-week break where you can focus on your finals and also Thanksgiving break. And week 9 is when you come back from Thanksgiving break, and that is when our hack challenge starts. Lectures during week 9 and 10 are decided by you guys, and we can teach topics that might be relevant to the hack challenge. We will be teaching this course in Kotlin, which is one of the official languages for Android development. You will find that Kotlin is very similar to Java, so it shouldn't be too difficult to pick up. I'll just be giving a super brief overview of what makes Kotlin a little different than Java, and Kevin in the demos will be talking a lot more in detail about how to actually code in Kotlin. So Kotlin is a statically typed language. This means that the compiler knows the type of the variable during compile time. It can do this implicitly, like the first example, where it looks at the string Leslie and infers that variable name is also type string. But in the event that the compiler cannot infer the type, you can explicitly state the type, like in the second example. What makes Kotlin different than Java and other object-oriented languages is nullability features. So for most languages, variables by default are nullable. This means that you can set the variable to null. But in Kotlin, it's the opposite, in that variables are generally not nullable. So in this case, with the first example, if you set name to null, you'll actually get a compile time error. And to allow a variable to be nullable, you have to add a question mark like in the third example, and that way no errors will be thrown. And this is really great because it prevents null pointer errors during runtime, and it makes it a lot easier to debug because you know during compile time if there's a null pointer error. Finally, there are 2 different variable types in Kotlin, which is val and var. For val variables, if you set the value of that variable once, you cannot reassign that variable. So in the first example, if you assign name to Leslie, you cannot reassign it to a different name. This will actually throw a compile time error. But if you use a var variable, you can reassign that variable as many times as you want. And this is a really great distinction because this allows you to protect certain variables and prevent developers from changing the variable's value accidentally. So that's just a really brief overview of what makes Kotlin a little different and also a little nicer to work with because it allows you to catch a lot of errors during compile time. If you want more practice with Kotlin, you can go to Kotlin Playground, and you can also check out our textbook. And Kevin, like I said before, will be going into more details about how to code in Kotlin in our demo. Now I'll be talking a little bit about what SDKs are. Basically, every Android device comes pre-installed with a specific SDK version. So for example, Android 10 equates to SDK 29. A minimum SDK for your app means the lowest possible SDK that the device has to be able to run your app successfully. A target SDK is normally what you aim for your app to have the most optimal performance. So, for example, let's say that Eatery has minimum SDK of 26, but I own a phone that has SDK 21. This means that my phone may not be able to support Eatery because I cannot use all the features within Eatery. However, if I switch my phone to something with a higher SDK, which is higher than a minimum SDK, then I can use all the features available within Eatery. So for any app that you develop, you will need to make a trade-off between supporting older users with older phones and also getting access to a lot of really cool app features that's only available for higher SDKs. Here is a table of how Android version number equates to different SDK levels. We normally recommend SDK 23 to start with, and just raising that SDK as you add more features to your app. Android SDK 23 comes with a lot of new permissions of settings that lower SDKs don't have. So that is normally why SDK 23 is used as a baseline. I'll just be going over a brief overview of Android Studio, and Kevin in the demos will be showing you more of these parts in detail. So this is what Android Studio kind of looks like. This is a main editor. On the left side, you have the project panel that shows you your file structure. And on the right side, you have the editor, which is where you write all your code. And at the bottom, you have the bottom menu bar. This supports a lot of different cool tools to use for debugging. And at the top, you have the toolbar that allows you to run a lot of really cool stuff like running your emulator, running debugging, pulling up SDK Manager. And you can read more about these in detail in our textbook. There is also an emulator, which is a virtual device that you can run on your computer. And this allows you to run your app virtually on your computer without a physical device. And this is also a really good way for you to test code on various different Google devices and also on different API levels. Generally, emulators are a little slower than physical devices, and they also make your computer slower. And at times, they have limited functionality in that they can't support very complex features that you may have. So for example, when we were developing Eatery, the Google Maps wouldn't show up on our emulator because we didn't have the right permissions on our emulator. And finally, I'll just be briefly going over what a logcat is. A logcat is very similar to Java system.out.print methods. It's also very similar to just like regular print methods or like console.log. It's just a way for you to print messages to the logcat for you to debug. And there's a lot of conventions for logcat and different ways to do it, but we mostly recommend log.d, and that is just mostly used for debugging statements. So log.d takes in two parameters. The very first one is a tag string. This is what you search for in the logcat to look for your logging statement. And the second parameter is a string that you actually want to print out. So normally this is a variable or this is like a network request or something. So finally we reach the end. In terms of action items, please make sure that you are enrolled on Student Center in this course for 2 credits SU. Please introduce yourself on Slack, and we have homework 1 out on our website, and it is due Sunday at 11:59 p.m. Now, Kevin will be giving a quick demo of everything that we have talked about.
Hello. Welcome to the demo portion of the Intro to Android Development lecture. My name is Kevin. I'm going to be the other instructor for this semester. So, bit short on time, so I'm just going to get right into it. We've just gone over like the logistics of the course and a quick gist of 1, what you're learning, and 2, a few things about Android development. So we're going to apply that right here. I've got Android Studio opened up. And let's just start by creating a brand new project. So, brand new project, what do we start with? I'm going to go start with an amp day activity because you'll see this in the main project template. This will create a brand new Android project with all the features that you see on screen. You can start with, some menu stuff, a button down here, a way to go back. You can start with a tab activity or a Google Maps or a login. It comes with a lot of, nice templates, but they all have like a bunch of extraneous code that if you just start out with, it might be a bit confusing to you. So I'm going to start out with the MP activity, and I recommend that when you start a project, you probably choose the same. It's got nothing else in it. It's nice and clean. It makes life a lot easier when you're adding on your own stuff. Cool. I'm going to name it what? You know what? Sure, demo application. Yep. Language. This is where you choose the language that you're writing your app in. we're using Kotlin this semester. It's new industry standard language for writing Android applications. It solves a lot of issues. It makes everything a lot easier. I'm going to get more in depth with it once I got an application up and running. Down here, you'll find the minimum SDK. This is an interesting, this is an interesting selector because you might not know what these are. These are the Android versions we have so far. We have Android 10, the latest release version, the one that my phone, which you're watching this video on, is currently running on. And all the way back to the earliest versions of Android. Actually, no, that's only 4.0. Huh. Okay, all the way back to the earliest supported versions of Android at the moment for app development. We recommend to use API 23. This is Android 6.0 Marshmallow. It was released about 4 years ago. That gives you a very good span of devices that your app will run on. If you want to know about how many systems, cumulatively will be able to run your app, this is a great distribution chart for it. You find it right here at the Help Me Choose part. If you choose Android 6.0 Marshmallow, you'll hit about roughly 84% of all Android users. Awesome. Let's create a new app. This will take a little bit of time, so yeah. Perfect. Here that the build system for Android is something called Gradle. It's how Android gets its dependencies, puts it all together, compiles everything. But it also takes some time. So Gradle usually takes quite, a fair bit of time to load. In the meanwhile, let's take a look at the editor. Android Studio is based off the community fork of IntelliJ, the one of the big IDEs made by JetBrains. You'll use you might run into a lot of JetBrains IDEs over the course of your college career, such as WebStorm for building web applications. You'll use that or IntelliJ is often used in either the higher levels of 2012 or game design. You'll find it used quite a bit. And so, learning Android Studio, you'll get used to this whole layout of where all the buttons are, how the autocorrect works, what the shortcuts are. It's actually good. IntelliJ is excellent IDE. It beats Eclipse out of the water, 4 times out of 5. It's an excellent editor in many respects. It also is quite resource intensive, though. So you'll often find that if you're running too many simultaneous things on your computer, it's going to be a little bit slow. I'm running OBS to record this and, several tabs and a few other windows in a different desktop. So yeah, this might be a bit laggier than your experience, or it might not be. I'm running a fairly powerful computer. The file structure. On the side up here, you'll find the file structure. This is where you'll find, it'll say app. Like when it's done building, when Gradle's done building, it should show up like this. If it looks like a file tree from the actual file explorer, it's probably not done building yet. Give it a bit of time. So here's the app. Here's the manifests. We'll talk about these in lecture 3 or 4. And lecture 3. We have the Java files that are here. Yes, lecture 3. We have the Java files that are here. This is the main activity of the this is the main activity of the main screen that we're looking at. We call them activities. Each activity is essentially the screen that you're looking at. So this is the one that it automatically created. This is the main activity. It'll also generate an XML file for you. This is where all of the actual buttons and whatnot are put here. This is how you lay out the screen that you're working on. And everything shows up here. There are 3 ways to put things on screen. You can either look at the visual editor and drag and drop things in. Like say, let me just put a button here. And let's say I Come on. Oh boy. Let's put a button here. And let's constrain it to the left and right so it's nicely centered. And you know what? Let me put it below this hello world thing and give it 36 spacing units from it. We don't deal with pixels in Android Studio because the thing about pixels is every Android device has like a different size screen, and there are quite a few now with two screens, either horizontally or vertically. You can't you can't possibly create a design that's pixel perfect that makes all of those work. So in Android, we often work with general spacing units called DP that will essentially inform how things are spaced around here. Yeah. So like this thing is 32 DP away from the hello world side. I can make that 64. It doesn't even have to be powers of 2. You can do whatever you'd like with it. Right? Whoops. There we go. Numlock. Right. So now it's 50. And now it's a bit farther away. Yeah. In addition to the XML visual editor, you can also do the same editing in the XML itself. So this is actually what the file looks like, and this is essentially Android Studio's artist rendition of it. In here, you can add more things to the XML file. It's just like it's very similar to HTML. So opening bracket, opening parts, parameters, closing, and you can nest things inside. You can put one thing inside another. Lovely system. And you can see the changes being reflected in real time on this other side of the screen. I can change the VP here again to about 100, and it'll fall all the way down there. Lovely. Or you could just work in the raw code. Some people like working in the raw code. You'll find that Leslie likes working in raw XML. Yeah. So there's that. There's also a few more files, a few more folders you'll find. In addition to Java, it says Java. We are working in Kotlin. That is fine. Essentially, everything runs in the Java virtual machine in Android, so it'll still read Java. You're still writing Kotlin code. Res. This stands for resources. This is where all the layout files, like activity.xml, activity main XML, shows up under a layout because that's the layout for the screen. Drawable. Under this folder, you'll find things that you've put in to show up on screen. So PNGs, SVGs, if you like your scaling vector graphics. All of those things show up under drawable. You also have values. So if you want to reuse something a lot in this app, and it highly recommends that you do this, you put the reusable things in these values folders. So like if you were going to have a button name something, put the button's name in here, like say string, give it a name, give it a simple name, button name, and then, put some text in there. Hi Android. And then over at the button, it does not like hard-coded text. It will give you a warning about hard-coded text. But it's still perfectly usable. But it's like put an @ put the resource file name in there, so string, button name. And now it says hi Android. And if I change something here, it changes across the board along the app. So if you use that string multiple times, changes immediately. Lovely. That and yeah, so colors for your app, for your buttons, for your whatnot, you'll find them here. And different styles. That this is where your theme for your application goes. So that will show up here. Yeah. If you like to modify the contents of a button, you'll find that on the side in the visual editor, you'll find a bunch of different attributes that you can set. Focusable, gravity, height of the shape itself, margins towards like what it has, padding. We'll choose an easy one to play around with for now. Like say Where is it? Should be in here. Ah, hell. I'll use background tint for now. I can give it a tint of a color based on what its current background is. Blue. We now have a blue button. Cool. That's all well and good, but now how do we see the app? How do we give it a test? Up here is where your AVD manager is, Android Virtual Device. These are virtual Android phones that you can launch that will have a full running version of Android on it, and you can test your apps. So you open the virtual device manager, you set up a virtual device with all the RAM and all the with the shape, the RAM, the specs that you want, and then you can just launch them. So it will just show up in your available devices. You pick one. I want to make version 9. Logs of the in real time come in. So it'll show up here. This is what the itself is doing. So you'll just see come a debuggable process, and then be able to specifically say, I only want to see things coming out of this app. Even so, there will be a lot of different kinds of data. So you're going to have to, filter. You can say everything. I want to see everything. Or I only want to see debug messages. Or I only want to see errors when they show up. Or I only want to see errors and warnings. Essentially, this is the lowest level. This will show everything, including all of the below. And for the more direct, the more important each and every one of these things is. So now it has launched our demo application, and it has set our view of what's being outputted to only stuff from that demo application. Lovely. Cool. Man, they changed that icon. Yeah, so ta-da! It says demo application. It has everything we want. It has a button that we can click, and it has hello world in the center. Perfect. We can leave that in the background there. A few other things we want to take note of. That the SDK manager. Oh Lord, I really hope you all can't hear that. I should close my window. The SDK manager, which has all of the one moment, let me find where this is. Tools. There we go. SDK manager. It has the current SDKs or software development kits you have installed on your computer. These are all the all the software development kits you can target when you're actually building these applications. So having these installed means you can build specifically for that thing. And, the higher level ones you have installed, the more features they have, but also potentially, being non-compatible with previous versions of Android. So, I'd suggest you download the one for 6.0 because you're working on API level 23, but you can also download some later versions and some earlier versions. These are all kind of big. SDKs are roughly 200-300 megabytes. So these will take some time to download. In addition, this is also where you'll find your tools for debugging. Say USB drivers to connect your phone up to, accelerators for the emulator. They all show up here. Yeah. All right. And, we went over the layout inspector and running on an emulator. Perfect. All right, so let's quickly go over some Kotlin. So let's get started on the Kotlin portion. Kotlin's a fun language, and let's start out with just how to make a variable. Unlike in Java, where generally your method of creating a variable would be setting the exact type of the variable and then the variable name. Kotlin, you can just put var something, something. Let's call this URL var equals perfectly acceptable. If you want to ensure that something will be set to a specific value, you might want to. Let's put this up here so it's a global variable. You might want to set it more manually, like string equals, here's a var. If you don't want to set it initially, there are a few commands you can use, like late in it, to tell it that we're going to initialize that later, but not quite now. And a lot of other tools you can use. Let's see. Let's say we want to, in addition to var, there's also val. Like this implies, var is a variable. It is something that can change. It is something that you want to set. Val is a value. It is constant. It will remain the same. This is how you create a constant in Kotlin. And use val whenever you're doing something that you're never setting the value again. This way, this keeps essentially things in your code very consistent. And you'll pretty much know that like this isn't changing if you've seen it set for val. That way, mutability isn't really a problem, and you don't have to worry about something being the wrong value because you know it's value. Yeah. In addition, you can also do things like this, where URL set equals, and here are a few operators we can use. C string, you can put a question mark behind that if it can be both string and a null. If it's perfectly fine being a null. You can also do a few other things with null safety, is what this is all called in Kotlin. Because in Java, you often do like null checking to make sure it doesn't throw like a null exception. Late init, right? Late init can't take that. But like if that URL var isn't set by the time it gets to this thing, you can do something like this, where your URL var, and then you put a question mark next to it to tell it, hey, you can give it a question mark dot length, and this will either return the length of your variable, or it will return null. Either one of the two. However, if it is null, you can use this system to set that. If it is null, let's give it a 2. And that will now set URL set to 2 if URL var is null. So a bunch of fun things you can do regarding null safety in Kotlin. But yeah, that's the basics of variables and nullability. Essentially, in Kotlin, you don't have lowercase int, lowercase bool anymore. Everything is an object, and the Kotlin compiler will take care of converting that into primitives on its own end. But everything you're working with, objects. Cool. And in addition, let's touch upon how this impacts Android as a language. Yeah. So let's say we want to play around with the button that we've just created here. This button that we've creatively named button. I'm going to shrink down the logcat because the code's getting a bit small. If we want to do something with button, you have now imported in a reference to the main activity button in there. Would you like to do something with it? Awesome. In that case, just one moment while I bring up some things that we can do. Want to do something with it? Add on. Set on click listener. And then just any code you want to run all goes in here. So let's say if it gets clicked, let's play around with that other thing we have, a text view. Let's give that text view a setting of hello world. Just do set text. Don't need to do any methods or anything. .text will reference the internal get set methods in text view. And so we can just set the text to working. Cool. Let's click the button that essentially reloads the app onto the emulator we got. And let's take a quick look. Cool. Working. Ta-da! It changed. So, in addition to that, .text is also what you use to get the text from it. So if it's equal to hello world, let's set it to working. Otherwise, let's set that to hello world. And let's load that in again. And now it toggles back and forth between it. Ta-da! And let's do one last thing. One thing that you'll find particularly useful in Kotlin. In Kotlin, if you want to create a list of things that you want to, go through, like what if I wanted 3 values? I don't want to keep doing if statements, right? So let's create a val, because this isn't going to change, of toggle list. And let's give that equal to mutable list of. So mutable list of will create a mutable list of things. Let's say mutable list of hello world. Intro to Android. And working. And from there, we can also put a var of the index that we're currently on. So in this case, let's say, let's say the index is 0 to start with. And so text view dot text equals toggle list dot get index, and that should run through the indices. Why is it giving me a... Yeah, it's not happy with me for some reason. Index plus plus. Oh, right. That was out of habit, but here's the thing about Kotlin. Semicolons are optional. You can leave them in, you can leave them out. They are nothing more than just identifiers in the code. They have no effect. So feel free to use them, feel free to not. I'm going to set the index plus equals to... I'm going to set the index equal to index plus 1 mod 3. And that should work beautifully for the purposes I'm using it for. So in theory, that should always run through all of these. And let's take a look. Perfect. So, yeah, that was a quick overview of like how to create a simple app in Android Studio. I'm gonna drop in one last tidbit. Right here is something called the debugger. It is very useful in your computer science career. It has a lot of terminology like breakpoints, whatnot, that you're gonna have that you might be confused about at the start, and it does a lot of things. But it's really useful when it comes down to it. Like, say, if something broke in my code, I can put this down here, click on the sidebar, there's a little red breakpoint that shows up. and I click the debug version. So what's going to happen is it's going to open up this app. It's going to wait for a debugger to attach. And then boom, it stops when it hits this line. It doesn't do anything after it hits this line, and it pauses there with all of the variables at the time there for you. Step. So you keep going one more line. Okay, it has run through this line, it's created this list. Shows up in your code with all of the values that have shown up in your code. Toggle list is now in this variable blocks. Step. It's now contacted the button, and it's also created an index, which is shown here. It tells you the element, it tells you what it's in, and then keep going. And it has just stepped over this line of code, and now it's created an on-click listener. And then you can just click this button to resume the program and just let it slowly run. It runs like usual, and it runs like usual. This is a very valuable tool, the debugger, and it'll tell you if it hits a breakpoint, that you should really get to know, like just in comp sci in general. You probably don't need it for your initial stages of Android development, but in general, lovely tool to have. We're going to teach you like a bit of how to use this. We're going to teach you a bit of how to use Git, because we're going to be, putting up GitHub repositories for all this. That, and in the hack challenge, with complex apps, with all these interconnected parts, you're really going to want to know how to debug better, and also how to use Git to work with your team. And yeah, I think that pretty much covers what I wanted to cover for today. Thank you all for tuning in. Thank you all for joining this class. Welcome to Intro to Android, and I wish you all a very nice rest of the week. See you next week with your next lecture.